Hey guys, and welcome to another very short guide of mine. Today I'm going to give you 5 tips on how you can improve in Legion TD2 in case you just got started, or if you're a veteran player who's trying to improve. Like, those tips kind of apply to everyone, except for maybe the first one. So the first one is pick a predefined Legion. This is especially important for new players, but also for more inexperienced players. I can't stress this enough. Just pick a predefined Legion. Like, take either Element, Forsaken, Mech, or Growth. Don't bother with Mastermind yet. Just pretend it's not there, because it's really not important for you if you get started with the game. I know it can be interesting, can be fun, but if you really want to improve, if you want to understand the game and really demolish your opponents and climb the ladder, start off with a predefined Legion. It's the best you can do. It's just way easier to actually improve and try to figure out why you were leaking or why you were losing when you're able to, do the same build again in the next game, and you always know what you can do for each wave. So please just take one Legion that you like and stick to it for a while. Once you feel like you've actually mastered it and not only know how to play it, but also how to beat it, then you can go ahead and pick up the next Legion. But until then, just stick to one. And once you got all 4 of them covered, like once you know all of the weaknesses of the units and how much you need for each wave, like just rough estimates, then you can actually go ahead and pick Mastermind. But until then, just stick to Legion. So the second tip I'm giving you is always be aware of your surroundings. Like, this is a 2v2 game. Like, this is a team game, and everything that all the other players do directly influence your lane. So what I'm seeing with lots of new players is they will play like this. Like, they will be on their own lane and they never look over. Like, I've seen this with so many streamers who pick up the game or just heard of it from new players, that it's very, I know it's very hard because there's lots of things going on, and when you get into the game, you kind of have to focus on trying to not league yourself. And I understand that, but you should really try to always look at other people. Like, at the very least, look at the one that you're sending to and your teammate, because your teammate is also a very important factor. Let's say you can see that your teammate is, for example, really bad on wave 6, and you just got a big send on wave 5, and the enemy is saving to wave 6 for your teammate. Like, he hasn't gotten a send in like 2 or 3 rounds, and he looks really bad on 6. So what you could be doing, like, you could, if you were like this and you just got a send, you wouldn't know that your teammate is bad on 6. You'd probably go ahead and push a crap load of workers, because you just got your send, right? So you are gonna hold 6 very easily. But thinking about that your teammate is very likely to leak on wave 6, you might want to get just 1 or 2 workers, like 1 or 2 workers less, so that you can actually hold for your teammate, because you certainly do not want to take king damage. So this is something to look out for. Like, try to understand, or just ask him. You can also ask him, like, when does he think he's weak, or like just tell your teammate. That's also something that you can do. Like, if you know that you're weak on a certain wave and you don't really have anything to cover it, or you're afraid you might leak there, just tell your teammate about it and ask him to build a little bit more for that wave, because it can certainly help you win the game. And then the next thing is, like, with the guy you're sending to, just pay attention to what he's building and try to anticipate what he's going to build next and when he might get his workers, because sometimes you can see stuff like that. And yeah, that's something that you should pay attention to. And then also, obviously, to the guy that is sending to you. This is actually really important as well, and something that is also connected to your teammates. So you should pay attention to when your teammate is sending. So for example, when your teammate is saving for like 3 or 4 rounds, and that means that this guy that he's sending to, which is the guy sending to you, is very likely to not be able to push too many workers, which means that the send he can give to you is a lot smaller. But if your mate is just sending over and over again, well, he can push workers like crazy, and then you are fucked and you gotta build more. So that's also something that you have to pay attention to. For example, if your teammate sends a snail on wave 1, then sends another snail on wave 2, and another snail on wave 3, which is like the worst case scenario for you, and your guy is not sending to you on 1, 2, 3, and then is sending to you on 4, you'll know you're gonna get a big ass send, and you better be prepared for it. But if your teammate is also saving to wave 4, then you know that the guy who's sending to you cannot push that many workers and that you likely have to build a lot less. So this is something you really, really have to pay attention to. I know this is hard, but just try. Just at least try to look at when your opponent, when your teammate is pressuring, because you can actually use the pressure that your teammate is applying to this guy to push more yourself, and then put more pressure on this guy, which means that he is having less pressure on him. As I said, it's a team game. You're not like, even though like many new players think this is a tower defense and it's just about surviving longer than your opponent, it really is not. It really is not. You have to pay attention to everything, because everything is connected. Everything matters. Every tiny thing. Even if it's just a snail on wave 1. Like in high reloads, sending a snail at wave 1 when the opponent is not weak at wave 1 can cause some serious issues, because with some builds, that means that they can push like 2 workers extra before wave 3, which then results in a way bigger send on your teammates. So yeah, just pay attention to that. Okay, the third tip that I'm giving you is that you should focus on denying workers rather than to force leaks. So what this means is that it's not always a bad thing if you have saved and your opponent is not leaking to your save. It's really nothing bad. Like for example, if you save from wave 1 to 4 and you send there and he's not leaking, that does not mean you failed your send. Not at all, because what you should be trying to focus on is trying to deny workers at your opponent. You want to, like in the early game, it's all about who can get more workers out earlier to build up income, because this is what the early game is about. Like it's not necessarily about making your teammate your enemy leak. I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong, I mean, making him leak is great, but that should not be your main goal. Like your primary goal should really be to deny workers, because that's something you can consistently do. And forcing leaks, well, it's mostly up to him. Like unless he's very unlucky and he plays Mastermind and does not have anything for a certain wave to cover that, someone leaking is actually pretty much always his fault. Like if he fucked up, you apply the pressure, and that is what you should focus on. Just apply pressure, make them lose workers, make them overbuild like crazy. You're winning if you're making them overbuild. Like if he stays, for example, if your enemy is still on like 4 or 5 workers at wave 6, and you are on like 7 or 8 workers, you are winning. It doesn't matter if like he didn't leak to your saves, you still won. And that's something that many new players don't understand. At least I think they don't, because like I saw many people say like lower elo players, it's not worth to save, like they are not leaking anyway. But that's not what it's about. It's more about not letting them snowball out of control. You want to keep your enemies in check. You want them to not be able to push workers like crazy. So try to focus on that, and you'll notice that you're gonna win more games. I bet you. Okay, so now the fourth tip is post-game statistics are your friend. It's really that simple. Like when you end your game, it doesn't matter if you won or lost, just have a look at the post-game statistics. They can tell you so much. It's insane what they can tell you. Like there's a builds tab at which you can click, and then you see all the builds for each single wave, and you can also see what kinds of mercenaries have been sent on that wave and what has been leaked. And then you can try to use this to try to understand what exactly happened. Like for example, if you and your teammate were both kind of bad on wave 9, and the enemies were starting to save at like wave 5 or 6, and they did not send on like 6, 7, 8, or just 7 and 8, and you actually made your opponent leak just a tiny bit on wave 8, like he leaked 1 or 2 creeps, that's good, right? Making them leak. But let me tell you, it's not always good. It's not always good, because in that case, it likely only meant that you gave them more time to gather more Mythium to fuck you even harder on wave 9. And that is something that you can try to understand when looking at post-game statistics. Like you can just have a look back and try to figure out like what could have been the plan, because it's really not about brain dead sanding or just trying to make your opponent leak. It's also about like trading hits back and forth, right? Like sometimes if you make your opponent leak, as I said, it's going to bite you back, because it gives them more time, it relieves pressure on them, and yeah, if you're bad on the next upcoming waves and the enemies have been saving, then yeah, unless that leak has been pretty big to feed you enough to hold off their send, they're likely on the better end. And that's something that you can actually see in the post-game statistics. And what you can also see is when you're leaking big, you can try to understand why, which brings me to the next and most important tip that I'm giving you is use custom games for testing and optimizing your builds, which is also one reason why I highly suggest you to play predefined Legion at the start, because you always have the same towers. So what this means is you can go in a custom game, like I'm in a custom game right now. In a custom game you have many options. I think it's minus command available. Oh god, help. It's minus help. Okay. Sorry. I don't use this anymore because I have them all in my head. But when you go into custom game and you type minus help, you can see lots of commands. Like you can actually do many things in the custom games. And one of them is that you can actually, give you gold. Like with greed is good, you can give you lots of gold and mythium. And then you can go to a certain wave. Like I'm at wave 3 right now because that's what I wanted to show you. And then you, you previously checked your post-game stats, right? So you saw, for example, that you leaked on wave 3. And you kind of always on leak on wave 3. Like when you play and you notice that you always manage to leak on wave 3. Like every time you get a brood on wave 3, which is pretty common, you leak. And you ask yourself why? Well, custom games are the place that can tell you. You can actually try it out. So let's say you had this for second build, right? Let's say that you had like this. And you got a brood. Okay, so you can go ahead and test this because you can just build it. You can send a brood, and it's actually going to be sent to you if you're alone in the game. And that's how you can actually test your builds and try to understand why you leaked. So here, this should actually leak. Like it can hold, but it should leak. So I just hope that it actually leaks this time. But brood got sniped pretty fast, so it might not. Anyway, what this is about is really that. Here you can just try it out as you had it in game. That's what I often do actually. Like for example on wave 6 when I leaked and I'm like, I don't get why I even leaked. I go to a custom game and yeah, see, this is leaking, and then you can try to figure out why, because positioning actually matters a lot. It actually matters a lot. You'll see that if I put this gargoyle right here, it's not gonna leak anymore. It's just not gonna leak anymore. And this is something that you can figure out in custom games. You can use your builds in custom games and just send mercenaries to you over and over again and just try to find a build that actually holds, because it's not just about the towers you build. It's also about how you position them. Like how you position them is actually having a very, very, very big impact. And learning how to position fighters properly is something that you can learn in custom games. So this is by far the biggest tip I can give you. If you notice you have issues with certain waves, that you always leak them no matter what, just go into a custom game and do some testing. As you can see, it's very easy hold, and you can figure this out on your own. Like you have all the time in the world. You can test it out as many times as you want. You can send everything to you. Like you can even if you want to send 3 roots, for example. By the way, you don't have to wait. You can also type greed is good again because this resets it. So yeah. Custom testing is really, really, really important. And you can also use it to try to make your opponent leak. For example, if you saved up like a couple of rounds in the early game to try to make your opponent leak and you're not really understanding why he actually held that, you can also copy his build. Like you can build his build and then send what you have sent and try to figure out why that actually held and see if you can actually make him leak with the same amount of mythium but with different mercenaries. And if you do this, you can also learn to understand what kind of mercenaries are good on which wave and against which builds, because there's also many things that you can learn, and most of those are just experience based. Like it's things that you can learn by experience, and but it's also things that you can just test out, because you have the tools right here. I know it's not the most fun to test things in custom games, but if you really want to improve, it's what you should be doing. I can tell you, like when I started off this game back in November 2017, and I still played Forsaken only, I spent so much time in custom games. Like I spend insane amounts of times in custom games trying to optimize my builds, figuring out what I can do to hold certain sands and how much I need it. And you'll figure out, like sometimes there's cases where all you need is like one T1 unit at a certain spot, and you'll suddenly hold the wave, and previously you leaked like half the wave. It's really insane. It's just many things that you can learn. And with Mastermind, it's a little bit harder because you get different roles all the time. But then even with Mastermind, there is certain kinds of roles, certain kinds of combinations that you often use. For example, like Aqua Bone Warrior or something like that. And then you can also try to figure out how to start off the best using this combination. Like you can switch between all the builders right here, like builder 0. Like you can switch between all of that. And to get the Atlantean units right now, you sadly have to use builder 4, like, which is Mastermind, and try to find them. It's kind of sad, but yeah. See, there's the Sea Serpent. But yeah, once the Legion is complete, that's gonna be gone too. And yeah, that's it with the 5 tips. I hope that they prove helpful to you, and I hope you liked the video. I was trying to make it short, but I feel like I've been talking too much, I guess. Anyway, I still hope you enjoyed it, and I wish you a wonderful day and have fun at Legion TD2, and see you on the ladder, guys.